Here we go, everybody. Today, welcome to the Jesse James Show. Today, we'll be going over a couple topics. Make sure you give us a like, share, subscribe, and follow us on social media also. I think you guys are going to start to enjoy some of the content we're going to be pushing out. Today, my topic is going to be the vaccine controversy that's been going on for, I don't know, too long for me to even remember. There was a point where there was so many people that were anti-vax, and then there was people that were anti-vaxxers, you know, and to be honest, I just didn't know. So I started doing my own little deep dive, and then RFK comes along, and I am a huge fan of JFK. If it wasn't for JFK, Green Berets wouldn't be wearing their beret today. Thank you, JFK, for doing everything you did for the Green Berets. We appreciate you. I mean, our whole school is named after you. All right, so today we're going to start talking about vaccines, working through this vaccine thing. So here's a quick little clip right here of RFK talking about vaccines.
My son, born in 1991, has a slight form of autism called Asperger's. But it seems, and again, when I was practicing law and also when I was in Congress, parents would constantly come to me and they'd bring me videotapes of their children, and they were all around the age of my son or younger.
The generation
something happened in 1989.
Exactly. The generation, what happened was the vaccine schedule was increased. We went up from receiving about 10 vaccines in our generation to these kids received 24 vaccines. And they all had this thimerosal in them, this mercury, and nobody bothered to do an analysis of what the cumulative impact of all that mercury was doing to kids. As it turns out, we are injecting our children with 400 times the amount of mercury that FDA or EPA considers safe. A child on his first day that he's born is injected with a hepatitis B shot. Under EPA guidelines, he would have to be 275 pounds to safely absorb that shot.
And yet we're just constantly pumping our kids with these vaccines.
Right, and what happened was that in 1988, 1 in every 2,500 American children had autism. Today, 1 in every 166 children have autism, and plus 1 in 6 children have other kinds of learning disorders, other kinds of neurological disorders, speech delay, language disorders, ADD, hyperactivity, that all seem to be connected, that are all connected, the science shows are all connected to autism.
You know, Bobby, what we've always found, you and I could debate 1,000 different issues, whether it's Terry Schiavo or the environment. I think would agree on the environment. But in this case, you've got the federal government coming in saying, well, there's no good science. And of course, in politics, science always gets diluted. Why hasn't the federal government stepped up and worked more? Because listen, Bobby, I can't prove it tonight. You can't prove it. But intuitively, you look at the spike, you look at what happened with the thimerosal, there is no doubt in my mind, maybe it's 2 years from now, maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years from now, we're going to find out that the thimerosal causes, in my opinion, autism.
You know what? The science is...
So if you take a look at what JFK is talking about there, even more studies have came out today that 1 in 36 American children have autism today. Now that hits me pretty close because as they were talking, you heard them talking about ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, many different types of autism spectrums. And I too have family members that have autism. And I am very fortunate that those family members that took care of them are great, wonderful people. And I'm so happy to have them in my life to keep that going. But from the amount of vaccines that were started back in the 40s compared to today is insane. Some places fit over 50 shots by the time you're 18 years old. What's in these? Why haven't we seen studies? Why don't we see ingredients? Why don't we see anything like that? And RFK has been saying this for years about this. Here's another short clip. We probably won't get through the whole thing. But to me, this is just another example of all of this. You have big pharma paying doctors to vaccinate their kids or their patients. They get kickbacks for it. We have to pay for the vaccines. Our healthcare is crazy. Our healthcare insurance is crazy high for all Americans. So they're vaccinating us with all of this weird stuff. Mercury, one of the big things. I mean, they complain about mercury in fish and then they're okay with injecting it in us. Don't eat this fish because it's high in mercury. But yet they're throwing mercury right into our bodies. 50 something times, possibly, maybe, allegedly. I don't know. All right, so we're going to dig into this video real quick and take a look at it.
I want to get to vaccines. If your kids were young now, would you give them the measles, the mumps vaccine?
No. I got measles, mumps when I was a kid. It was
Lots of people died from them, used to die from those diseases.
well, you know what? They died in the 1900s or early 1900s. There were about 10,000 Americans a year died. In 1964, there was about 300 or 400 who died, and they were almost all severely malnourished kids, mainly from the Mississippi Delta. This was before the poverty program, so there was a lot of starving children in our country. It's very, very hard to kill a healthy child with any infectious disease, but particularly with measles. And the World Health Organization now says vitamin A is an absolute cure for measles, which we didn't know about back then. Back then, you know, we were treated with chicken soup and it was, you know, a week at home watching Leave It to Beaver, and every kid caught it. Every single kid got it. And I had 11 brothers and sisters, and we all got it, and we were all fine. And there are lots and lots of studies out there now that show that kids who get measles as a child are much healthier when they grow up, that they're much more resistant to cancers, to atopic diseases, to allergies, and to heart disease.
You went to Samoa. You convinced people not.
I just want to pause right there real quick. To me, I feel like in the same way, I think like we need to have those natural immunities. We need to build that up, generational natural immunities, pass it on to our children. Those things that we fought off throughout our life. Breastfeeding mothers will pass that through their children. Male will pass it into the female through their genetics, through their DNA. And those natural immunities that we're building up over generations, millennia, really saved a lot of lives. And I think that these vaccines are hindering that in many ways. As you can tell, like there's even more signs of leading to cancer, autism. Autism's huge for me. It's crazy to me that we're still doing things like that, trying to vaccinate our kids to the point to where 1 in 36 children today have autism, some form of autism. All right, we'll continue on with this.
to get the measles vaccine. An outbreak resulted in 83 deaths.
Yeah, well, that story is not true. First of all, the Prime Minister of Samoa stayed the measles vaccine after measles vaccines killed a number of people in Samoa, including members of his family. So when I went to Samoa, the ban was already in place. And I visited people in Samoa. I didn't know there was no policy that resulted from my going to Samoa. Secondly, nobody died in Samoa from measles. They were dying from a bad vaccine. And the vaccine was imported from Australia and given to people who had measles, which is not recommended. The same measles outbreak hit Tonga, which is the neighboring island, and nobody died because they didn't get the vaccine. So this is more propaganda by the pharmaceutical industry, which is, drumming up a lie to try to discredit me. But if you actually look into it, John, you'll find that it is not true.
And you still say that autism is caused by vaccines?
Yeah, autism is caused by vaccines.
All right, this just goes to really show my point that I believe, and I'm under the opinion that autism is caused by vaccines. At one time in my life, I vaccinated my kids all the way through. And today, living in the great state of Florida, I do the religious exempt. My kids don't need to be vaccinated anymore. My kids don't need to have that poison put into them. If they want to get it later as they're adults and they can choose, they can get it later. That's up to them. They can pick and choose. They can do their research. But I'm not going to force them to do this without me knowing true data. I want to know both sides of the spectrum. And I really hope RFK really leans into that and shows us the data. I think there's something that's going to be released here soon, especially with the way he's been talking with President Trump. All right, let's continue on this.
And by the way, CDC's own data, they did a study called the Stratton study in 1989. And they looked at the hepatitis B vaccine. They looked at children, and from the biggest database in the world, the Vaccine Safety Data Link. They looked at children who got the hepatitis B vaccine during their first 30 days, and they compared those to kids who got it later or didn't get it at all. And there was a 1,350% elevated risk for autism among the people who got the vaccine.
There may well be, but there are studies with millions of people. You ignore the studies.
Look, you have this wrong. There's a series of about 13 studies that were done by people we call biostitutes. One of them was the leading one, who are people who do these studies for money for CDC. They were paid for by CDC in order to create the illusion that vaccines don't cause autism. The chief scientist was a guy called Paul Thornton, who CDC laid, and his study is the most cited study for this proposition. And Paul Thornton is now a fugitive. He's wanted by Interpol. He stole millions of dollars from CDC that he had claimed to use on this study, but he was building houses, buying motorcycles, and living a life of luxury. And his study is absolute fraud. And yet they have not retracted it because CDC is a dishonest organization. It continues to be cited in the literature. And by the way, John, there are hundreds and hundreds of studies. I've written a book, if you're interested, called Thimerosal, Let the Science Speak, that has, I think, 1,400 references and over 400 studies cited that link autism and other related neurological injuries to vaccines. There is no question about it. If you actually read the literature, if you listen to what the propaganda that CDC tells you, yeah, vaccines don't cause autism, but it's propaganda. This is a captive agency that is intertwined and owned by the pharmaceutical industry.
All right. RFK laid it out pretty well, I think. Literally all these studies and everything. I mean, you could hear it. The corruption that just came out of the CDC to this one guy on a study that's cited all over the place for autism and vaccines. So I don't know. You guys can take what you want from it. You could read about it. You can deep dive into it more. We can also go into more of this this ban that RFK issued. So RFK just announced he has banned the mercury-based thermosol from vaccines. That was August 2nd. So you can just see the progression of this whole thing on how it's actually going. Now, is anybody going to be held accountable? Like, are these pharmaceutical companies going to be held accountable for putting mercury in our bodies over and over and over? Now on to another Nick post. So this is August 27th. So this was 2 days ago. Breaking: CDC Director Susan has been ousted by RFK Jr. after she attempted to push the COVID vaccine per multiple reports. Multiple other top CDC officials are out as well, as they complied about reciting approval for the vaccine. Good riddance. All right, we'll do this is a short clip, 40 seconds. Let's take a listen to it.
And Rich, some big news out of the CDC tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Health and Human Services is announcing that the director of the CDC is out. This is just a few weeks after she was confirmed. Susan Menarez is leaving. Also, this is on top of Reuters now reporting that several others at the CDC have issued their resignation letters. The reasoning is unclear, though. The New York Times is reporting it was over differences with Secretary Kennedy on vaccine policy. Federal regulators have just approved and limited COVID vaccines for Americans. That has also put them at odds with some doctors groups who have issued their own recommendation on who should get COVID shots.
All right, so this just goes again to how RFK has telegraphed exactly what he was going to do. he was going to get into the CDC, start tearing it apart because they have all these corrupt officials pushing vaccines, probably getting paid somehow on the backside. Like, I'll do a deep dive into that and I'll see if I can find any way that she's getting paid. And maybe I'll make a video on that. Comment down below if you want me to make a video on that. I'll find something. And then so you have RFK coming in saying he's going to stop these vaccines because of mercury. He's been talking about it, wrote a book about it, continued on about it. And now he gets into the CDC that these same directors are saying, you know, like, we need to keep vaccines. We need to push the COVID vaccine. Obviously, we know the COVID vaccine did nothing. We watched it real time, how fast it went through, got pushed through, and we have no idea what happens to us for years. We won't know. There's no case studies. There's nothing really showing into that. And we're going to see 10, 15, 20 years from now how bad COVID vaccines changed us. So now he's getting into there. He's firing all these people that only care about pushing more vaccines, and he's fighting back against big pharma from inside the government. This is just the beginning of it. So here's another clip right here from Rand Paul. Good riddance to the extremists at CDC. I'm liking this. Get rid of this big government, make it small. We don't need a huge federal government. They need to shrink it down to nothing and let us decide. It needs to be given back to the people. So there's no medical evidence that COVID vaccine changed transmission or health outcome for healthy children. Senior CDC official quit after director ousted by RFK. I love this. This is amazing for them. All right, so I wanted to end on a high note. If you're a Florida resident and you want to actually get this Florida exempt, it's really easy, probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes is all it's going to take for you to go in. You can go into your health department, your local one, real quick, religious exemption, take it to your school. Especially now, I know it's a little bit late and a lot of the vaccines have already been pushed and stuff right now for kids to get into school. But if you get this, you no longer have to vaccinate your kids, or you can pick and choose which vaccines go with them. It's not mandatory. Either way, it's up to you. But here's the website. All I did was Google search exemption for required immunization and check them out. Pick and choose. Take control. That's the main thing. Take control of your own life, especially being a Florida resident. You know, don't let the government force jab you all the time. So, all right, I'd like to say thank you for all my watchers, everybody that's going to be checking this show out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for giving me a like, follow, and subscribe. I want to get this channel going, and this is the Jesse James Show. I'm going to try to put out as much content I can for you guys on any topics you want. Comment down below, and I'll start making these topics for you. Don't forget to comment down below. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Check out our link tree so you can give us a follow on our social media, and we're getting some merch coming out here soon. So help us out. Support the channel. Let's go.
Come check